define your brand's unique story, a great way to be memorable is going to actually be the guide within the story. So imagine you're taking someone on a hero's journey and you have the hero, the protagonist, which is your customer or something like that. And then you have their challenges, which are their conflicts. And then you are the sage, wise one with the wisdom that is going to share what they need to be able to help them along in their journey. So it's all about using the hero's journey, which is a very long time tested writing tool in fiction and fantasy, all of those things, to show how to navigate an area of life or whatnot. And so when you're thinking of your customer and their conflicts and their challenges and what they're experiencing, you position your business as their guide, which I think is a really great way to use narration and narrative and storytelling in a way that is going to connect you with your customer, show the value of your business, and be very adaptable from business to business. This works for the corporate law firm. It works for the co-working and event space. It's very easy to implement. So, when you're thinking of building that narrative and building your story, some things that you can think about are what inspired your brand, what made you want to go out and do this specifically, what problem does your brand solve, does your company solve, and then who are the people behind it, not just saying this is a bland company, but really highlighting the people behind it. Sometimes that's the founders, sometimes that's the overall culture and community of the people that you have. Your customers feel like they know who they're doing business with. That's the goal here, is to build a relationship, to build a community, and communities thrive from storytelling. And then how you present that story in a way that makes you stand out from your competitors and remain authentic is ultimately going to be rich with details of building know, like, and trust factors with your customer base and with the overall community. So when you're thinking about building know, like, and trust, you're positioning yourself as a guide, but it's not staunchly, even on the legal side, it's not just staunchly boring business. It is humanized. It is sharing troubles and sharing what you've overcome and how you've gotten there and why these things are important to you. So when you're thinking of building your narrative overall, reach deeper and think of telling a story. Is the story that you're telling something that people around the fire would want to hear? Or is it boring as hell? If it's boring as hell, you need to revisit your brand story and find something that is going to resonate and be memorable and that uses those characteristics of the protagonist, your guide, your conflict to really make something memorable. And then doing it in a way that is, of course, authentic. It can't be something where you're just pulling random things or random values. It really needs to be true to you, and it should be something that you could value check against everything that you do in your business and say, if they were to say that this is absolutely true, do they see that reflected in how I deliver my goods or services? Do they see that in how I treat my employees? Do they see that in how I show up online? All of these values need to be authentic. I feel like our customer base is so sophisticated right now in so many ways. They're educated, they are skeptical. It's a highly competitive environment right now, and you do not have time to not be authentic. That's like the key and highlight of the culture today, especially with all the things like cancel culture and whatnot, which I'm not a proponent of. So how do you implement the building a story brand framework in your marketing strategy? First off, I think it's really important to understand your messaging, your voice, your overall branding, and how that communicates. Of course, your story is a big part of that, but your story you can bring to life through all of those other different brand elements. And then how are you using this to tell a story on your social media, to tell a story on your email newsletter, to tell a story on your website? How are you able to then return to this framework whenever you're working on something marketing wise and saying, am I doing the best that I could here to tell a story? I'm doing the book launch and everything, and I'm looking at my opt-in emails and thinking, okay, I'm telling them what's valuable. I'm telling them why they should care, but it's boring as hell. I need to build it up and enrich it with a story. So I sprinkled throughout stories of my story, stories of clients I've worked with, stories of our business, stories of how we got here, stories of why I wrote the book. And it enriches it so much more. It pulls people in. There's so many demands on everybody's attention. If it's boring, it's going to be forgotten. It's not going to be opened, and it's going to be all of the hard work that you're putting into your marketing and everything that you're doing is just going to be for naught. And I always like to think of getting the maximum return on investment for everything that I do in my business, whether it be marketing or legal or anything like that. If I'm going to put up a post on social media, it better be done well, because I don't want to waste my time doing something and then it not even performing well. That's why you have to think of how are you going to build your story into all the different things that you do, create a community, and ultimately thrive as a business as a result of this specifically.